Welcome back, everyone. It is Monday here, and I'm glad that you are watching this video. So what I want to accomplish in this one is to add a little bit more to what we talked about in the first two videos of coding standards. Some of the things I'm going to discuss are important because you'll lose points if you don't follow them. Other are really just more for your general information on how to write good code that's easily maintainable and easily understood by other people, but important that if there's something goes wrong, for you to way to go back and say, oh, I know how to fix that. So let's start off with the top again. It's vitally important that you put your name, activity name, and whatever is the purpose of the program. In this particular case, is to get the length and the width, and we're going to calculate the area of a triangle, or a rectangle rather. So that's fine. So remember, you definitely want to put this. If you don't put the activity name on, that's really not a big deal, but you should. And also your name and the description, that is going to be something that is required. Again, we have the IO stream, which you're going to need, and your call on whether you using namespace or not. I don't normally use it. I like to list all of these things in here and just add them as I need. So what I'll do is if something doesn't work and I uncomment after using namespace, I know that I'm missing one of these using here. So we can go back to that at a later date. Again, this is your call. There's ongoing fight over whether or not to use namespace standard. But the bottom line is, if you do put it, you're putting a whole bunch of things in there that are not going to be used, but then nobody's really counting. So let's talk here about this. The one thing that's missing here is area is not commented. Always, 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 before you submit code, comment what the purpose of the variable is. So we're going to do area of the rectangle. And I totally understand that sometimes the comments are really self-explanatory and not really necessary, but it's important that you put them in anyway in there. So you're going to get things that are not so easily understood. In this particular case, well, this says length, but length of what? How do we know not we're doing the length on the base and the height? Could be considered the length and the width of a triangle. We could be doing any length and width, maybe of a football field. So you want to kind of clarify that. Now we have some functions that we're doing it. So remember, the rule of thumb in main is really to do as little as possible in main. Do a bunch of functions in here. And notice that we have area equals length times width. So I don't recommend doing any calculations in main. I feel that everything should be done in a function. That is my personal preference for myself, and I think hopefully you'll agree with it. Sometimes it's a little bit crazy to have them have a function. But if you look at main, it would be nothing more than get the length, get the width, calc the area, and then print in there. So if something goes wrong, you can go back to the function and fix the function instead of having main with 100,000 lines of code in there. And where do you start? So let's go and start right off the bat, and let's write a function that says calc area. So in this particular case, we are going to return an integer. The reason why we're returning an integer is because we're multiplying an integer by an integer, so we don't have to worry about any doubles. So we just call this calc area. And yeah, I could call it calc area of rectangle, whatever I want to do it. So what we need to pass in here is two integers. One is going to be the length, and one is going to be the width. So what I'm going to do here is recommend, in some cases, you might want to put in length and width here, so that when you go back to the function and you're passing it, you clarify what is the length and what is the width. But if it doesn't work, look at the actual definition, which you're creating right over here. So we're going to make it length and width. Now, if you do something like this, you can pretty much count on getting points taken off. It's never a good idea, except inside a for loop as a counter, to use a one letter variable. So let's make this length and width. So now here's the important part. And again, I recommend right off the bat, commenting out the returns just in case you forget to do it. I'm not sure why this is here, except let's put it up top here where it belongs. And then I also recommend commenting, this is calc area. This makes it so much easier for you to determine if a brace gets deleted by accident. You can go find out where, you're looking over calc area and there's no closing calc area. So now what I want to do here is I want to create a variable called area. And I always initialize everything to 0. That's my style. I don't want to take anything for granted, and put area of rectangle. And then up top here, I'm going to put in the purpose of this function, or this function will do. If I could spell, that would be great. Is to calculate and return the area. And often I'll put something in like the area equals the length times the width. And hopefully I spelled everything right. So now there's two ways of looking at it. You can go area equals 0, and then you can do area equals length times the width. And then you can just do, in this particular case, we're going to return the area. That's one way of doing it. When you have something very, very, very simple, a return, a lot of people will like to do this. And I don't have a problem with it. Just do return length times the width. It's basically the same thing. It's very simple. However, the reason why I do it this way, it makes my code so much easier to look at and say, this is what I'm doing. If you put in something like this with just one simple calculation, that's fine. But if you had something that had a lot of multiple calculations, such as the volume of a sphere, well, it's not a very simple thing, so you wouldn't want to do it on that. But anything that has a simple calculation, that's acceptable. I prefer to do it this way. This is the way I normally do it. However, you can use your conscience to your common sense and what you want to do, which way to do it is. Either way, it should be fine. All right. So we talked about this here, and let's go back up to main in here. And I think I have a spelling mistake in here somewhere with I know I have a spelling mistake somewhere, but let's see. Length times the width, L-E-N-G-T-H. I knew something looked wrong. So what we'll do now here is we're just going to do something that I do not like. See out calc area, and we'll do length and width. I am definitely not a fan of this. Yes, it works. I totally understand that. Let's comment this out. But it makes it a little bit more confusing. The best way to do it is area equals, and I'll just copy this code here. And then we'll do C out the area of the rectangle is area. And let's try and run this in here. We don't need this anymore. Actually, I had it already, but that's no big deal. I do these things on the fly, unrehearsed, and that's just me. I like to do it so you can see the real me, how many mistakes I make and duplication of stuff in there. But That's me. So let's go and run this function and see if it works. Notice the confidence I have in here when I'm constantly saying, see if it works. So we're going to do 10 times 12. And, okay, we have that, and 12, and the length and the width are there. The area is there. So that looks good. So now we have one other thing. Suppose we wanted to print the length and the width. We could write a function that says display the area in here. Here we have just a simple one line over here. So we might do that in the next video. I would probably write it. I do not like to have much stuff in main. I just like to have function, bye, have a nice day. That's the way I prefer it. Instead of doing it, and we'll do it maybe in the next video, what happens if we have a integer function that we want a specific minimum in here? So here we have the length of the 0, and if we go into get integer, yeah, it requires you to be greater than 0. But maybe we are doing something like an interest rate that has to have, say, 2% or 3% is the minimum. Or maybe the smallest rectangle has to be 5. So what we're going to do is function overloading. You should have learned function overloading. It's the same function name, but with different parameters. So I'm going to go integer, get integer again. We'll pass our string like we did before, and then we're going to pass in an integer. And that will be the minimum integer that you can have in here. So let's go and we'll do get integer, string integer in here. And for time's sake, I'm not going to put in a lot of comments. I might not put in any, but hopefully you understand the importance of them. So what we're going to call this is lowest. Now, notice if I type in min, and I use min somewhere else, min is actually a predefined already in C++, so I don't recommend doing that. So let's just go and put in lowest in here. And then what we're going to do here is steal the code from this. And this keeps getting moved around for some reason. All right, so now what we're doing here is instead of number is greater than 0, we're going to put number must be greater than or equal to the lowest. Notice I changed greater than or equal to the lowest because we're passing the lowest possible value in here. You could also write the function where it has to be greater than. So we can put it in here, not valid, must be less than 0, or in this particular case, must be greater than and equal to lowest. And we'll add a little space here. And so this looks good. Now I'm writing this function on the fly, so who knows if I'm going to mess it up. So here what we're going to do is now we're going to get the integer, what is the length of the rectangle. But instead of doing it here, let's pass in and let's pass in 5. So to see if it works, and we'll leave this over here alone, because if one's going to work, the other's going to work. So let's go and pass in what is the length of the rectangle. Let's try 4. Okay, valid must be greater than or equal to 5. So we'll do 5. And then we'll do the width is going to be 3. And the area is 15. So this looks good. We could actually do a little bit of fancy stuff in here with the prompt. And maybe we'll do that in the next video. And what we can do here is tell the user what the minimum is. What is the length of the rectangle? Let's just do it actually this way. And we'll put in must be greater than. Now, I can't put in plus 5. I can't do that because now we're trying to mix a string and a integer. So that's not going to work. So what we'll do here is we'll put in, and this is only going to work one time because we know we're using 5, but it's just a little trick in here. So we'll do plus, and we're going to get an error when we do this, so don't worry about it. To string of 5, and then we'll put in plus, and we'll put in this here. And so now we have an issue with toString. So let's see why. The first thing is we need to include, in order to use toString, we need to include string. And now we're still commenting it out. So let's try this. Remember I said if you're not sure if this is something that is a namespace issue, comment out the namespace and get rid of it. And let's see if it disappears. Okay, so now we know that that's the issue. So all we have to do in this particular case is using std to string. Now, that's the way C++ is. I can't say it any other way. So let's just test this one here. Now remember, we're kind of cheating a little because we're saying that we need to know what this is, and you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to change it every single time. But you could input the variable, what is the minimum length, what is the minimum width, but that's for another time. So let's go and let's just test this to see if this works. And then we're going to talk about one other way to improve. So it must be greater than 5. So again, let's try 4. And then we'll put in 10 and 5, and we're good. So we could now make our program a little bit better by changing the integer and the width and reversing the length in there and the width, as I was saying, because technically the length shouldn't be shorter than the width. And so the width should be obviously less than the length. So we could do the length first, rather the width first, and then we could run something in here that makes sure that it is. So let's do this. Let's go, and we want to make our length and our width kind of the same. So I'm just playing with stuff on a spur of the moment. So the length, this should be width, actually. So let me delete this, and let's put our width above our length. And let's just make this what is the length, and then we'll do must be greater than 5 and 5. And we need a plus sign. So, and we need a, do we finally have it? We're missing something. Let's see what I'm missing. We're missing this quote here. And I just messed it up more than before. So let's see. Plus. So let's get rid of this. Yeah, you can't have two strings in with a plus sign in there. You actually have to convert a string to a string. That is unfortunately the way it is. To string 5. Then we need a plus sign here. So I spent more time doing one thing than, all right, so let's see what I'm doing here. I sure messed things up. And comma 5. So we have, let's see what I'm missing. I probably should have just copied it properly and not done the thing in here. So I'm looking at the difference between the two plus, I see I have the pluses in here. So let's just get rid of this and let's just copy it from there, and then I will. All right, now we finally got it. So now when we get what is the length of the inner, we could put here must be greater than the width, and we can put here width. So let's just give this a try. This was something that I did on the fly. I had no planning on doing this, so let's go and run it anyway and see how this works. So it says in here, what is the width of the rectangle? Must be greater than 5. So let's just put in 10 to make it happy. And then we have, what is the length of the rectangle? Must be greater than 10. So let's put in 8. And must be greater than or equal to 10. So let's put in 20. And the length is 20, the area of the rectangle. So it looks like we have something printed twice, but that's all right. So let's see what we have. See out width. The length is. So I'm not sure what we have in here printed twice, but that's okay. In there. So that is it for this thing. On our next one, we're going to do a little bit more on function overloading. We're going to talk about multiple returns in a function and the good, bad, and ugly about that. And so I have some cosmetic issues to work in here, and then maybe we'll do a little bit play in here. So to recap, things that you want to do when you submit code, make sure that you have your name and all this stuff on top. Make sure that you are commenting each variable and what the purpose of it is. Use as many functions as humanly possible in here to do things in here. Now it's okay to do the see out the width and the see out the length in here. That's fine. I like to do that and then I comment it out because it's not necessarily. But what I do here is when I first get the width, I want to make sure that what I'm getting is being returned properly. And same thing with the length. So if I forget to comment out the number, or I just leave it as return 0, then I'm going to get 0. So this is going to tell me right off the bat that I messed up. Then we use a function over here. And then we could actually create another function, which we'll do in our next video, that will be print rectangle stats or whatever you want to do in here. And then we're good to go. So that is it. Hopefully this helps you. Please make sure that you are leaving comments on it. And please make sure that if you like the video, please like the video. That helps me to prepare for future videos. That is it. Hope this helps. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.